Good afternoon to everyone. I'd like to welcome all the faculty members, resource persons, chief guests, and the participants in our 2 days international webinar entitled Health Issues and Social Status of Women, organized by Department of Anthropology, Shampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, and Department of Anthropology, Ramsodai College, in association with IQAC, Shampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, and IQAC, Ramsodai College. Our focus of this webinar is women. Biologically, the term is expressed by the term female and represented by XX. It is the chromosomal constitution of female. Actually, women is a broader term, and we have chosen women because the social status and health issues of women are very much important for the well-being of all society and all cultures of the entire world. Status of women and the health of women are quite interdependent to each other. If in a society women have lower social status than men, it is producing unequal power relations. For this reason, women can be particularly vulnerable to human rights abuses and suffer poor health outcomes. So status of women as well as health of women are solely related to the health of a society. Today, our speakers will discuss about two major health issues of women. One is polycystic ovarian syndrome and other is breast cancer, which are two major health problems being suffered by women worldwide. Anthropology deals with human as a biological species. With the help of holistic approach, anthropology has a great role in health issues. Biological and cultural factors play influential role in human health. Anthropology tries to identify the possible cultural and biological risk factors for restricts the health problem. Polycystic ovary syndrome or Picos is a condition where many small sweet-filled sacs grow inside the ovaries that affect a woman's hormonal level. Picos syndrome, due to lack of ovulation, alters level of estrogen, progesterone, FSH, and LH. Estrogen and progesterone levels are lower than usual, while androgen levels are higher than usual. Picos have three main features. Those are cysts in the ovaries, high levels of male hormones, and irregular or skip period. Women with Picos produce makes it harder for them to get pregnant. The etiology of the syndrome remains largely unknown. There has a belief that higher level of male hormones prevent the ovaries from producing hormones and making eggs normally. Genes, insulin resistance, and inflammation have all been linked to excess androgen production. Up to 70% of women with PCOS have insulin resistance. It may be the cause of association between PCOS with obesity. PCOS also causes hair growth on the face and body and baldness. It can contribute to long-term health problems like diabetes and heart disease. PCOS is associated with anxiety and depression due to PCOS. Uterine lining is thickened. It can increase the risk of endometrial cancer. On the other side, breast cancer is cancer that forms in the cells of the breast. Breast cancer can occur in both men and women, but it's far more common in women. Breast lump, change in the size and shape, newly inverted nipple, changes to the skin over the breast are the common features of breast cancer. There are a number of factors which have association with breast cancer. Hormone, lifestyle, and environmental factors may increase the risk of breast cancer. Breast cancer is caused by the complex interaction of genes as well as environment. Better understanding of this disease and awareness program can help increase cure rates. Thank you, everyone. Now, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Shuntu Kumar Bose, Principal, Shampur Sindheshwari Mahavidyalaya, for his endless support. I would like to welcome you, sir, to deliver inaugural speech. Now, the screen is yours, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I welcome all the participants in the 2 days international webinar on health issues and social status of women being organized jointly by the Department of Anthropology of our college, Sampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya and Ramsadai College, in association with Internal Quality Assurance Cell of both the two colleges. I would like to express my gratitude to the chief guest of this webinar, Dr. Deeptindu Chatterjee, Deputy Registrar, University of Calcutta. I would like to convey thanks to the honorable speakers of the first day of the webinar, Dr. Arup Ratan Bandyopadhyay, Professor, Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta. Tania Pavlika, full professor at the Faculty of Sciences, University of Novi Sad, Serbia. Miryana Sadiq Galik, full professor at the Medical Faculty, University of Novi Sad, Serbia. Miryana Udichi, assistant at the Medical Faculty, University of Novi Sad, Serbia, who will deliver their valuable lectures in this webinar. I would also like to convey thanks to the Principal, Ramsadai College, Dr. Dev Kumar Mukherjee, coordinators and members of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, along with the teachers of the Department of Anthropology of both the two colleges who deserve it for arranging such an international webinar in this time of pandemic. I think the participants will be benefited from this webinar. I expect a grand success of this webinar. Thank you all once again.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Rajat Mukherjee, the coordinator of ICAC, Sampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, to deliver his welcome note. The screen is yours, sir.
Welcome to everybody on this two-day webinar organized by the Departments of Anthropology of Sampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya and Ramsadai College. On behalf of the IQAC of both these colleges, I welcome every one of you in today's webinar. It has been our effort and endeavor to organize such webinars and engage ourselves in meaningful academic exchanges during this pandemic. We are grateful to everybody on board today in this virtual platform. I extend my heartiest congratulations to Dr. Ditindu Chatterjee, Deputy Registrar, University of Calcutta, who has honored us by giving his consent to be present here on this platform today. Welcome, sir. We owe it to you and thank you very much that you have taken time out of your busy schedule to come here today. I extend my warmest welcome to Professor Arup Ratan Bandyopadhyay, Professor, Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta, Dr. Tatiana Pavlika, Dr. Miryana Galch, and Dr. Miryana Udichi, our esteemed speakers who will deliver their valuable address today. I sincerely hope that this is going to be an enriching experience for all of you. And I also welcome all the participants who have logged on from various parts of this country to listen to our speakers. Welcome once again. Thank you very much for joining with us. Over to you, Hidayat.
Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Suprindu Maiti, Head of Department of Anthropology, Ramsadai College, AMTA, for giving a lecture, for giving a speech.
there seems to be some kind of network issue. So I don't think he's there with us in this platform at the present moment. So we will go ahead with the program and go to our next itinerary. Thank you, Hedai.
Okay, due to some technical reason, he is not in the platform right now. Now I welcome our another member of organizing committee, Bhagyashree Bose, to introduce our chief guest, Dr. Ditindu Chatterjee. The screen is your, Bhagyashree.
Am I audible? Okay. I feel myself very much fortunate to welcome our next resource person, Dr. Deeptindu Chatterjee, Deputy Registrar of University of Calcutta. Dr. Chatterjee completed his graduation in anthropology from University of Calcutta and master degree with specialization in biological anthropology from the same university. He received his PhD from Calcutta University in the year 2010 and completed his postdoctoral fellowship from IIT Madras in the year 2018. He received Young Scientist of India Award for the year 2003 to 4 in the 91st session of Indian Science Congress Association held at Chandigarh in January 2004. He has been serving different eminent educational institutions of higher studies from time to time. He was attached as part-time lecturer at Department of Anthropology, Holdia Government College and Bangabashi Morning College, and as whole-time lecturer in Vivekananda College for Women. Later, he joined to the Department of Anthropology, Bangabashi College in the year 2007 in a substantive post as an assistant professor. In 2015, he joined the Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta as assistant professor, and presently he is holding the post of Deputy Registrar of the same university. His research interest covers a vast area including body composition, human body resistance and reactance, componential study of human body, human growth, forensic anthropology, and several other subfields of biological anthropology. He has immense number of publications, both national and international reputed journals, and contributed chapters in different edited volumes. He conducted and supervised different research works of postgraduate and doctoral students of University of Calcutta and other institutions. Now I request his kind self to deliver his speech before the audience. Now over to you, sir.
Now I'd like to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Ditindu Chatterjee.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, respected Principal Sir, Dr. Shantukumar Bose, Shampoo Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, respected Principal Sir, Ram Sadai College, Amta, Dr. Dev Kumar Mukherjee. As I am the person from anthropology, it's a proud moment for me to be here on the today webinar in the specific subject in anthropology, health issues and social status of the women. It's a very means I'm very happy and I feel very proud and excited. Also, the man behind me, Professor Arupatam Gandopadhyay, Head Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta, my teacher. Always I feel proud. And the head of Anthropology, Dr. Subhendu Maiti, Amta College, the Hidayat Hussain and Soumitra Chatterjee of both the colleges and the IQAC coordinator and all my dear colleagues and all the participants. Today the issue is very important and we are entering in a new normal condition. So our normal concept and our normal lifestyle is changing and we are coping with such kind of situation. So it is a great big challenge for the anthropology. So anthropology is definitely we are communicating and contacting with the grassroots level, but now the situation is different. The joblessness, the changing of lifestyle and the other problems that grabbing our daily life. So we have to overcome the situation. So anthropology might be the very important key to open the good luck and good lifestyle and the good moment of human. So I express my best wishes for the very successful of today's webinar, and always I will be with these two colleges and in every event and issues in anthropology and also with others. So thank you very much. I again express my thank for giving me this opportunity and giving me this platform. I express my best wishes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd request to our other organizing member, Loknath Ghosh, to introduce our first speaker. Loknath, the screen is yours now.
It seems to me that Sri Loknath Ghosh is not being able to hear any of the sounds, and we are not being able to hear anything. So I will request Professor Soumita Chatterjee of Shampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya to kindly introduce the first speaker. Thank you very, very much, Soumita. Please introduce the first speaker. Soumita, please introduce the first speaker.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead. Soumita,
Thank
please
you.
go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to our resource person, Professor Arupratan Bandyopadhyay. He is known to everyone for more than 34 years contribution in anthropology. He is working as a head of the Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta. His specialization in biological anthropology, but he has an enormous knowledge in the entire aspect of anthropology. He teaches anthropology formerly in Vidyasagar University, then Vishwabharati University, and finally now he is working in our University of Calcutta. He has already completed more than 9 research projects in communicable and non-communicable diseases and evolution of hair, type 2 diabetes mellitus, forensic science, primate hair, anthropometric diversity, reproductive performance, growth and nutrition, etc. Genetics, archaeological anthropology, and huge area of public health like molecular heterogeneity and breast cancer, cytogenetics and breast cancer, dermatoglyphics and medical disorder, genetic marker polymorphism and disease, reproductive health, health and nutritional status, anthropometry and non-communicable diseases, etc. More than 10 MPhil and PhD researchers are already awarded, and lots of researchers are doing their research under his supervisions. 6 MD dissertations in anatomy also guided by him. He is life member of Indian Science Congress Association, Indian Anthropological Society, Indian Academy of Forensic Science, Indian Science News Association. He is life and founder member of Indian National Confederation of Anthropology. Member of Postgraduate Board of Studies, Department of Genetics, University of Calcutta. He is honored by lots of awards. He was president of centenary session of Indian Science Congress in 2013. Former Senate member, University of Calcutta. He gets merit awards of Young Scientist Award and Outstanding Scientist Awards. It is really difficult to convey all these awards in such a short time span. It is my pleasure to introduce you, sir. Now I would like to request you, sir, to start your deliberation. Thank you, sir. Screen is yours, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm audible and visible too. Can anybody help me?
Yes, sir, you are perfectly audible and visible. Please continue, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And firstly, I would like to go for my deep sense of gratitude and my honor and privilege to share this platform with my friends from Serbia, Tania, Bilyana, and Miryana, and the August participants, my dear students, and also lot many research scholars are there. I feel that they are with me always, and so much kind words about me by one of my student, Dr. Ditindu Chatterjee, and also Somita Chatterjee. So speaking about so much kind words, and really I'm working with the anthropology, and still now I think myself as a student of anthropology for a long time, because I think that teaching is a royal road of learning always. So all kinds of anthropology, I have been tried to make some kind of research over there, because not for me, but for the crazy ideas that my students are giving always to me to do this kind of work. And for a long time, I was thinking about to speak about the human health and the status. So I'll be talking about about the things in the women health. And already my topic of today's sharing has been uh, announced, that I'll be talking about in the women health. So I'm sharing my screen. So if share screen, yes, just a moment, just help me that whether my screen is shared. Is that shared right now, or there is any problem? I tried my best to share my screen.
Sir, can I help you a little bit?
Surely, why not? Because
Sir,
I'm
I'm
new here.
Rajarshi Mukherjee, the IQAC coordinator of Shampoo Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya.
Yes, yes.
There is a share screen button at the end of the panel, which you can see.
Yes, I have just gone through with this sharing of screen.
And now a window has appeared that there are 3 tabs: share application window, share Chrome tab, etc.
Okay.
And share your entire screen.
Yes,
So
I have already shared my entire screen.
But that is not coming yet, sir.
Okay, share screen, and there
And then
is
again click share. There is a blue button at the bottom.
yes, share.
Click that. Yes, sir.
Then entire screen, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then allow.
Yes, sir.
Allow. Now I'm allowing, right? Now it's
Just a
come up.
moment, sir. Just a moment, sir. This is your screen.
Yes.
We can see this, sir. Please make it full screen.
Okay, that's
Make it
fine.
full screen.
It's all right then.
Yes, sir. Absolutely all right. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for helping me remotely and virtually. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So I'll be just sharing my idea about the polycystic ovarian syndrome and emergent human health issues. So that is the most important thing that I was talking about, and I'm really, this kind of idea has been embedded to me by my students, that why we are not working on this particular issues of the women health problems. If I say problem, it's a problem. If I say this is really the emergent area of the women health. So I would like to go for the women health. Why? Because this health is really related with the economy, and this economy is related with the genders. And there are some kind of social cultural association of the women health in relation to women's status, and we'll be listening about this women's status tomorrow. And also the empowerment, because the human status comes up with the empowerment and other. And why this is really important, because this is really linked with the whole society and the child and the family. And there is a kind of proverb that if you teach or if you give education to a man, so you are giving to an individual, while you are giving the knowledge or education to the women, actually you are giving to the whole family. So that's why always the women are very much important in our all the population group, all the animals, because the woman really gives reproduce and give the species. Now woman represents really the cornerstone of the family's overall health. Ensuring they have access to quality care also can lead to improved health for the children and the family. Because when I say, this is a kind of semantic relationship, when I say the mother, we can kind of have the child, and if I say the child, there must be mother. So always the women are they improve the health for the children and the families. So women should take charge of their health. There are some health issues that affect women only, because some conditions affect men but to affect women primarily more severely. So we can come up here. So if I talk about the cardiovascular health, yes, all the health, if you can see on the left hand side, and all the kind of the health issues are there in the both the gender, but the reproductive health is very much important in the women, because they yield the children. So this reproductive health system function, dysfunction, disease plays a central role in the women health, And about 10% of the women between the ages of 15 to 45 have struggled with the reproductive health issues, and that has come up in the 2016 in the government of India, which is one of the third health issues for the women. So in the right hand side, some of them is very much important in the women health is endometriosis, gynecology cancer, sexually transmitted disease, and while the polycystic ovarian syndrome that I'm going to talk about this kind of things, whatever the idea I have and idea input by my students, that they would like to go for the research entirely whole in the Picos and uterine fibroids. And also this is Picos is one of the reason for the infertility. So Picos really what I think is the thief of the womanhood, that the womanhood that is very much related with the child yielding and the feminine nature. So causes of woman, if you go for the female infertility, so there are mostly the Picos have 85% of the causes of the infertility. Picos is deeply stigmatized condition and is one of the most common condition that cause infertility in the woman. And capacity to bear the children in the most associated femininity, and as a result, Picos symptoms, women feels different and less feminine. So urgent need, every woman has to access to the knowledge related to the spectrum of the woman's health issue. But what do we see here? That if you go for a awareness in the different aspect of the Picos, it will come up really, the figures are not very much encouraging. The term Picos is unaware of the lot of women, organs involved, lot of women, and causes of Picos unaware, there's a lot of human, and symptoms on Picos somewhere it is aware and not aware, because it's coming to a kind of relationship with the monarchical status. So India ranks second in the prevalence of the Picos, and it's sad that there is a little awareness about the Picos amongst the people. Well, I'm coming up with this one because yesterday was 27th September. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who is the involved in Indian Constitution, and he has started with the rights of OBCs and the women in the 27th September in 1951, and then resigned. This is human rights issues and other kind of thing. And I am very glad to let you know that the September is a National Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome Awareness Month. So even though there is no cure of the Picos, by making the woman aware about it, one can improve the symptoms. That is the most important thing, and them to prevent and reduce the risk of the Picos throughout their lifetime. So I'll be talking about something that how we can have some kind of biomarkers that we can use for the Picos, and also some of the, I mean, how much there is a relationship of the genetic relationship and there are environmental relationship, because also this Picos, I'll come back to this particular point, is just very, very variable in the different countries. So Picos currently known to be a genetic complex endocrine disorder. Picos is a syndrome, not a disease, because there are multiple factors that the people try to identify, and I'll definitely come in this discourse. With Picos, woman develops cyst due to the hormonal imbalance. So that is the most important thing about the hormonal imbalance. And I'll definitely come in this discourse how the hormones can be affected by the genetics and the environment too, and maybe with the psychological conditions, because hormonal imbalance is also coming up when the people sad, when the people happy, people anxious. So the hormone comes up with the flash, with the hormones, with the different kind of feedback systems. The follicles keeping growing and form multiple cysts, and which appear like a string of pearls. So when the gynecologists try to see that with the USG, so it's coming like the strings of something like this in the ovarian system. So history Picos dates back to, so first it was identified in 1721. It's an ovary size of a similar to the pigeon eggs. Then Shirao in 1844. Degenerative ovaries, and also changes was reported, that is a degenerative, and also the firstly it was known as Stein-Leventhal syndrome, that this disorder is first described when a woman with a menstrual disbalance, hirsutism, that the hair in the body and enlarged ovaries containing many small follicles were diagnosed. So Cooper and his colleague in 1968 that they tried to understand about the genetic basis of the Picos, and that has been first reported. So these are the clinical features of the Picos. So there is hirsutism. So you can see that females have extra hairs in the chin region, in the side region, and there is acne, androgenic alopecia. So there are female-like alopecia because it is a sex-influenced character, because male type baldness is different, female type baldness is different. And then there is menstrual disturbance and hyperandrogenism and insulin resistance. So it comes up with the oligomenorrhea to the Picos patients with a 70 to 75%, while the amenorrhea is coming up with a 20%. And finally, the infertility, definitely, if there is oligomenorrhea and there is menstrual problem, so infertility is happen to come up. So about 30 to 70%. And also, which is very much related with this particular thing, is very much related with the cardiovascular disease and the hypertension in the women. And this is also related with the obesity. So I'll definitely come up whether this obesity is really how much important obesity is there in case of the Picos. So obesity has been given here, the picture, as a central obesity, but it's not all the central obesity. There is some kind of regional obesity also that is in the different areas. I mean, in the hand, maybe in other areas like hips and other areas. So just here the photographs has been given in the obesity, in the central obesity, and skin tags are there. So you can see that skin tags and acanthosis nigricans. So this is a kind of insulin problem. So we find in case of the necks of the Picos patients. So psychological issues are there because when the Picos, so there will be anxiety, stress, depression, low self-esteem, negative body image perception. So definitely this is non-feminine kind of nature. So people are thinking about it. So psychological issues. So I have just talked about this. Psychological issues are very much affected with the hormonal disbalance. So I say that when people happy, people in anxiety, people in stress, people in fear. So hormones are always coming with the flushes to the body, and we have some kind of phenotypic expressions about it. And what happened that because of the different ethnicity present with the different clinical manifestations, it's not that all the people having, all the women having the Picos will show you the hirsutism or acne or androgenic alopecia, or whether this obesity, whether skin tags or acanthosis nigricans. So there are some ethnicity. So if we can go for trying out for the worldwide picture, what do we find in case of the worldwide picture? If you think about this worldwide picture, so some of the world is showing hirsutism. If you think about European country, it's more prevalence with the hirsutism. And if you come to the African countries, so there is obesity, hypertension added with the hirsutism. And also, if in India, if you come up, so best predictor for India is the insulin resistance. So this work is saying that insulin resistance is the best predictor for the Picos. And also, if you think about the obesity, so obesity may not be very, very much important for all the ethnic groups. If you can see in case of the in the Central Asia, so lower BMI, Picos onset at the younger age. So there is obesity, again, insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and hirsutism. So that is again an interesting picture. As a student of anthropology, definitely I would like to go for this variation. This is not because I said this is a syndrome and this is not a disease. So syndromic character may have different kind of manifestation. Well, so this is a late sequel of syndrome. So beside this, the spectrum of syndrome, women of Picos have a higher risk of developing other health complications such as endometrial cancer, ovarian cancer, and the breast cancer. So risk of these three types of cancer increases almost 2.5 folds among the individuals of Picos. And so why there is, because if you see this particular graphics and if you see that this one's activation of angiogenic switch dormant tumor, so increases cancer incidences in the Picos. So this is a kind of stimulations of the carcinogenesis. So classification of Picos based on the phenotypes. So 4 phenotypes can be observed in the Picos. So phenotype A, by ultrasound, numerous polycystic ovaries, oligoanevolution, and hyperandrogenism. And also the phenotype B and phenotype C, ovulatory Picos, and phenotype D is non-hyperandrogenic Picos. So Picos is not always there. We can think of this as androgenic excess or what. So let us see the frequencies. So most frequent is the phenotype A. Then we have some frequencies distributions of the phenotype A, B, C, and D. So they are the phenotypes. So now, not all investigator, when we too agreed with the classification of the different diagnostic criteria have been employed. So that's why the most favorable one was the Rotterdam criteria that has been established in 2003. So the Rotterdam criteria comes up with the three things: androgen excess, ovulatory dysfunction, and polycystic ovaries. That is done by the USG ultrasound. At least one ovary should be 12 follicles 2 to 9 millimeter and the volume greater than 10 milliliter. And then it comes up presence of out of three. So one can go for androgenic excess, and you can think of out of three, two is very much important to understand the Rotterdam criteria. So Picos being the emergent problem that needs careful assessment, timely intervention, and appropriate treatment. So that's it's very important to unravel etiology of the Picos to make an early diagnosis. That is the most important thing. Early diagnosis is the helping of the different kind of syndromes and characters and the disease, the people, the scientists are working out that whether we can have a idea that we can find out the risk factors through the early diagnosis in order to prevent early and the late sequel of the disease. Well, this is a kind of complex picture of this genes environment segments of the Picos, or any kind of character has some kind of gene and environment segment. So the most important segment for the Picos is the hormonal dysregulation. So of this hormonal dysregulation, which is very much important, that the ratio of this luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating ratio, and that make the hyperinsulinemia, and that makes this androgen excess. And finally, it comes up the anovulations and the Picos, and then come down to the soft fertility. And why I started with the infertility and I talk about the soft fertility, because if nowadays if a woman is infertile, there is possibility to take art, that is artificial reproductive technology. So infertile can be fertile with our modern technology. That's why I said it soft fertility. And must be, there is two factors, very important factors, is genetic factors and environmental factors. So several genes has been come up with the reproductive and metabolic pathway, because I said that reproductive is important because this is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So reproductive factors must be there, and some metabolic. I said that hyperinsulinemia. So that is most important thing. And also this is very much important twin studies, which actually give rise to understand about the heritability, how much genes are involved. That is 72% of the variance in the risk of Picos to be genetic. So 72%. So other maybe that 28% may be the environmental factors out of 100%. If you think 72% and the 28%. So family history being very, very much important. And the environmental factors, there is some gut and salivary microbiota. I'll be talking about this analysis of anthropology of microbiome within a couple of minutes or a couple of times. And then the dietary patterns in terms of obesity, that is very much important, because there is dietary pattern is being very cross-culturally different. And socioeconomic status, yes, country like India, socioeconomic status being very much important to understand the Picos. Physical activity, again, very much important, because to weigh out, this is for sedentary life. Fetal exposure to the androgens, well, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, the mother, the happen to be the mother has exposed in the androgens and the toxins. Yes, the toxins, environmental toxins maybe, or the toxins in the foods and other. And smoking and drinking, this also affects the Picos to the reproductive health of the mother. So many researchers has already got some kind of significant associations with the reproductive health, and also with the smoking and drinking. But I'm afraid to say that the way that this only these things, dietary patterns, or you think about the smoking, drinking, toxins, or socioeconomic status can analyze the Picos as a whole, because it's already given the twin study estimated 72% variance in the risk of the Picos to be genetic. So genetic part is very high in case of the Picos. So that's why environmental factors are there, because I started with the environment and the genetics. So family history is being very much important. So the studies say that in case of the rural and urban, we find the family levels, I mean the frequency of family levels are so much high, the research said. So result of the both populations suggest, I mean I'm talking about the rural and urban, strong family and component of the Picos other than the environmental factors suggested a dominant mode of inheritance, maybe because its genetics is going on. So family clustering of the cases along with the increased prevalence of Picos like features and comorbidities in both male and female. That's very interesting, that always we think about the polycystic ovarian syndrome when I say that that must be in case of the women. So how does a male can be involved? Because I said the familial. So family does mean that the man and woman will be there. So how much we can explain this male nature? I mean the male analogy to the Picos, that male equivalent to Picos. So I'm just trying to understand that we are trying, that our students are trying to understand the male equivalent of the Picos, because the publication is there what may be the markers of the male equivalent of the polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that has been published in 2004. And I was really interested with this particular paper when I was preparing this one. um, that is this is Picos characterized by hormonal and metabolic imbalance, chronically elevated insulin, gonadotropin releasing hormone, reducing follicle stimulating hormone, and also sex hormone binding globulin, and increased bioavailable androgen. So similar pattern has been observed in the males, and it comes within the own set of signs and symbols that I have already mentioned, that early onset of androgenic alopecia, that hairlessness in the head, in erectile dysfunction, benign prostatic and hyperplasia. And this is that I would like to, so this is a male pattern of baldness, because this is very sex influenced, and this is a female pattern of baldness is not something like this, because it's again an interesting factor. This is not X linked but sex influenced character. So definitely the hormonal things are very much important here. So the parallel striking the researchers has come to consider male polycystic ovarian syndrome equivalent. I'm not talking about the polycystic ovarian syndrome, equivalent, because male doesn't have the ovary. So that's a kind of equivalent. So whether this is a X-linked pattern, because there is some kind of equivalent things that we can go with the X-linked pattern. For example, color blindness, for example, G6PD deficiencies, there are some kind of X-linked pattern that males and females are being affected with the different kind of ratios. So a total more than 100 candidate genes already been comes up with this Picos. So you can understand that how many people are working on the Picos, because 100 candidate genes. So lot more people are working with this Picos. And finally, there are a few of many candidate gene associated with the etiology of the Picos, extreme heterogenic and complex disease. And if you can come up, it started with the reproductive pathway genes, so many genes, type 2 diabetes genes, so many genes, chronic inflammatory pathway genes, so many genes, obesity related genes, so many tumor suppressor genes. And these are very much important and related with the breast cancers and vitamin D related genes. So you can see that other candidate genes. So that so many genes are there. So it is just a kind of complex disease. So we are trying to understand, and if somebody would like to go for research in the Picos, so these particular things has to be taken into consideration. And I have already mentioned this expression things are very much variable in the different countries. So which country having this kind of genes, that is really the concern of the anthropology, to understand the variation of the culture specific, population specific. So interestingly, it has been found some of the SNPs are stands, that is single nucleotide polymorphism, are standing for developing Picos in one population and may play a protective role in other population. Again, it comes up very interesting. So these are, and if you think about this tumor suppressor gene, I said, but the BRCA1 and BRCA2 makes the cancer and making this the oncogenes. Uh, Again, the Picos are having this kind of interesting features nowadays, because this is emergent issues. And the geographic and ethnic variation immense plays an impact on genetic makeup of the various population, and gene conferred risk of some population may not be accurately reproduced in others. So there is enormous population variation, and that's why I really say my students who would like to go for studying the Picos, that might be a very interesting phenomenon, that if somebody would like to go for the etiology of the Picos, so really a different kind of discovery may happen. So the factor hindering the discovery of the single gene candidate because reproduce the another factor is going to be the linkage disequilibrium. That is again an important point for the genetics, because linkage disequilibrium does take time for the population. I mean, from the age to age. I mean, how much long this population is there, because I'm talking about, because within a couple of minutes, I'm coming to the evolution of the Picos. So this linkage disequilibrium will be very much important, because this locus are migrating from one point to this locus in the chromosome. This having some kind of changeover. This things are moving out. So might not be there is a linkage. So linkage disequilibrium might be very, very much important to understand. And you see that ancient population and the more modern population has some kind of difference in the LD blocks. I mean, linkage disequilibrium block. So more recent populations so have less LD blocks in Africans, in more recent populations in the Europeans. So that does mean that is related with the migrations and the different kind of population admixture. So this is might be that I'm starting with this anthropology microbiome because of the fact that there is a hindrance of coming up with a candidate gene. So whether if there is anything that we can study with this one, that is anthropology of microbiome. So human gut microbiome is a complex, and that's also affects the salivary microbiome, is a complex ecosystem harboring numerous microbes. So this is one of the important area that now can be touched with anthropology, because the microbiome diversity is very much related with the diets, related with the population, related with the culture, how which kind of food you were taking. So the gut microbiome, the men and women diverge after the puberty. Definitely we have some kind of divergence, and if you go for the body composition analysis or the body shape and size, so there will be after puberty, there is some changes in the waist hip ratios after the puberty, and other long many things, the whoever working in the growth. So they have, I mean, surge of explanations about the different kind of characters. So this an association between the gut microbiome and the host genetics suggests a certain bacteria predisposing into the healthy and unhealthy metabolic state. And we know about this kind of microbiome points. The people are working on this different kind of microbiomes. So not only the inheritance, diet may be also induced bacterial dysbiosis. So despite of exogenous genetic material, intestinal flora regulates the expression of the host genetics that can lead to occurrence of the Picos. So let us see whether there is any kind of, I mean, empirical idea about this Picos. So role of gut microbiome mechanism of the underlying Picos. So there are some publications are there. So these publications are going on from 2017 still now 2020. The people are very much interested with this microbiome diversity. So that as a result, diversified ecosystem microbiome participates occurrence and the development of the Picos through multiple links and pathways. So these are the multiple links where the insulin resistance and hyperandrogenism can make changes in the gut microbiome. So the salivary profiles are very similar to those of the gut microbiome and likely to influence the case of metabolic disease. So also this particular gut microbiome and salivary microbiomes makes a kind of Picos with a periodontal condition. So it's a gum problem. So this might be one of the biomarker that we can take. So female sex hormone change is a very important feature of the Picos. So that can be one of the biomarkers of the diagnosis of the Picos in the periodontal condition, that is from the gum, because of this microbiome. So with this particular thing that we started this kind of work in the University of Calcutta, Department of Anthropology, is there any salivary microbial diversity in the polycystic ovarian syndrome? So we started this one. So we have taken Picos and non-Picos and then identified with the 16S DNA amplification, because whether this is microbiome or not, and then we digested with the restriction enzyme ALU1, and we get a very interesting result that you can see that there is some kind of base pair cutting with this restriction enzyme, and finally the results what we get, 90% of the Picos patients are showing a different kind, and other is not giving a different kind of non-Picos cutting out. So again, this is a kind of empirical that has not been published yet. So we are waiting for publication with some more sampling with the different kind of cultural, I mean, different populations. So maybe in the Eastern India, Northeast India, because this has been done on Bengali Hindu population. So let us see that whether the other communities can give this kind of differences, so we can have a validations whether this salivary microbiome can act as a kind of biomarker, one of the biomarkers of the Picos. So study envisage additional non-invasive marker, because when you are taking the salivary microbiome, so it's a non-invasive. So only we need some kind of swabs from the mouth and the salivary microbiome diversities. Now this question is coming up again. This is very interesting factor. This is always talking about that whether obesity makes Picos or Picos makes the obesity. So this is again a chicken and egg hypothesis, difficulty to deduce cause and effect. So we have tried to understand whether obesity is making the Picos or Picos is making the obesity. So insulin resistance, Picos and obesity are very much interrelated. So you can see that complex features, a hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis, if you can go there. So insulin resistant and hyperinsulinemia is associated direct hypothalamic effects that favor the disorder. So one side this is Picos and one side there is obesity. So there is Picos coming out with this metabolic dysfunctions, and there are lots of things. So if there are so much, I mean, wider, so how we can go for that obesity is very much, I mean, associated with the Picos. Let's see what happens, that what research says, whether the obesity is really related with the Picos. So influence, obesity and the Picos are independent and additive. So what we got, obesity does exhibit many aspects of Picos phenotypes such as glucose intolerance, dyslipidemia, but not always lead to Picos. Not all women, this is very much important, with Picos are obese. So only 30% of the obese female we got Picos, the research says, but the rest of the 70% of the obese female did not have Picos. Again, the lean people can also develop Picos. I mean, the lean people can also develop Picos, and 20 to 50% of the women of the Picos have normal weight of thin. So the prevalence of Picos is relatively similar across the country with the different rates of obesity. For example, United States, Spain, or Mexico. So it's not really so. So one of the particular research that come up in the 2012, it is seen that BMI, that is prevalence of Picos by the body mass index, and you can see that underweight, that is Picos, normal Picos, overweight has Picos, again class 1 obesity Picos down, and again the class 2 obesity is up, and again the category. So how much we can have? Should we should treat obesity as obesity and probably not try to link obesity as a sign of Picos. That's why it has not been taken into consideration in the Rotterdam Criteria. It's 2003. Thus obesity is not likely the cause of the Picos. So I again ask the students who would like to go for the research of the Picos to make it a kind of association whether this obesity is very much related with the Picos or not. So Picos really is a hidden epidemic. Picos needs a serious attention. The rate of the Picos is at least 6%. Nearly all ethnicities excluding East Indian. So in India, the situation is very high. It's 36%, and Pakistan, yes, approximately 50%, because Picos impacts women of all ethnicities who are in the reproductive age. So India is a tip of the iceberg. So global prevalence approximately 2 to 2.2%, 26%, and India and in the whole world, 115 women worldwide, and every 1 in every 5 Indians suffers from the Picos. 36% of the women in India suffering from the Picos. So about 30% rise in the Picos in the case of the last couple of years. So definitely this is becoming an urgent area of the human. I mean, like the cancer, Picos is, because one of the conditions is if the person have a Picos, there is again a high chance of different kind of cancer. So in that case, it's an urgent area of research in the Picos. So understanding the prevalence of Picos by ethnicity, that I'm talking about population variance, is important. Is targeting the relevant population for the early prevention and the treatment. Global higher Picos is still great enigma and the paradox. Why? Females with the Picos are prone to subfertility, to infertility, several comorbidities. Why? Because this is very much interesting. Then when we talk about this Picos, so definitely there is some kind of interesting fact whether this syndrome is persisting right now or that was there in our human evolutionary history. That is very much important because all the characters, all the traits we are finding right now, there is some kind of evolutionary history. So indicate the human migrated from Africa by 50,000 years back. Picos genotypes appear to have re-emerged earlier than onset of racial diversity, that is ethnic diversity, and a very large fitness advantages in the prehistoric times, but becoming detrimental at the present stage. And why that we are trying out the people, many of the few researchers on the Picos, that evolutionary origin is a 20th century phenomenon or evolutionary determinants of polycystic ovarian system and polycystic ovarian system and ancient disorder. So all of the people right now is working trying figuring out that whether this is Picos is there for the right from the human evolutionary history. So with this extract of many papers are there, so I am just making some kind of extract and summarization. There are few hypotheses relating to circumstance under the Picos might have evolved in course of evolution includes hypothesis regarding hyperandrogenism, hormone synthesis of luteinizing and follicle stimulating hormone dysregulation, hypothesis regarding hyperinsulinemia, insulin resistance, hypothesis regarding leptin. This is very much important and adipose tissue expandability, hypothesis regarding the hyperandrogenism. So there are some kind of SNPs that in the CYP21 gene, and finally that increases bone mineral density, muscle mass, and the strength. These features provide positive selection evolutionary force. Why positive I'm talking about? Because children of the woman with the Picos have become carrier of non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia and lead to early puberty and masculinization. Not only elevated androgen level play protective role against inappropriate human responses is also very much important in case of the Picos and facilitate the restoration of the homeostasis in the response of infection, inflammatory or other stressor factors. So, hormone relation is there, definitely luteinizing and follicle stimulating dysregulation. So, again, there the papers, I mean, the research are working on that is coming up with some kind of single nucleotide polymorphism, and finally, it comes up hyperandrogenism and disrupt follicular growth and the reduced conception. So, from the evolutionary perspective, changes in the gonadotrophic dynamics might have some compensatory adaptation mechanism. So, it was reported with the paper Natufian women in the epipaleolithic culture lived in semi sedentary hunting gathering, which requires small family size because the people are moving out. So, it must be a small family size woman with the gonadotrophic dynamics, such as give birth less frequently, live longer than non-symptomatic women, ultimately favor the maternal and infant survivability during the prehistoric time. So when the people are moving, so more number of babies with the moving band will be problem. So might be the Picos comes up with this infertility to having facilitated an advantage to our bands, our ancestors with this particular thing. So Picos might also lead to a rearing advantage by the providing more childcare and the food compared to the woman without Picos. So again, there is hyperinsulinemia and insulin resistance, so mutations in the genes, insulin resistance supposed to provide some compensatory advantage. What is that? Minimize protein losses, provide glucose availability for inflammatory responses to protect them from the disease and trauma, as well as promote the growth during the pregnancy and the puberty and the cancer. So besides this famine, hunter-gatherer had to deal with the several infection, ecological disease, because the hunting gathering from one part to other, these people are going on, moving along. So since I'm a student, again, I'm telling about the anthropology, so I was very much interested to do the whether this Picos is coming up with the evolutionary features, which can consider as a main selection factors for insulin resistance to protect organism against the stress and prolonged starvation. So again, this leptin is associated with the regulated body weight. So this, I said, then dietary leptins, the people are working on dietary leptins, evolution having susceptibility of the Picos. So hunter-gatherer mainly characteristics of the deficiency of the food supplies and lead to insufficient of the adipose tissue and its hormones. That is called leptins. So again, we can have lots of idea about this one. So mutation in the leptin gene, leptin deficiency, and finally interrupts the regulations of the gonadotrophin hormone. Maybe this is the issue that has been taken from the evolutionary perspective, and the mutation That is there always. Their selections are there still now. So provide evolutionary advantage of the women with the Picos who are less well fed and at the time of hunting gathering stage. Maybe the Picos has some kind of advantage, and still now this is coming up in the modern human population. So coming to the extract, that the origin of Picos began in the Paleolithic hunter-gatherer community, which is Picos phenotype procured adaptive benefits of the energy scarcity and evolutionary mismatch. So how this evolutionary mismatch that we are talking about, that genotype survives with the Neolithic revolution with its adoption and the farming, animal domestication and sedentary settlements. Now I'm coming to this particular point. This is reproductive disadvantage of the Picos women in the Neolithic and subsequent periods would have less severe than they currently presume. So this is like hunter-gatherer females. Picos women in sedentary agricultural society may have been able to conceive, albeit a rate of the normal, so they may have lower maternal mortality and would have been served as a allo mother. These allo mothers are very interesting, that the actual not their mother, but they are serving as allo mothers to the kin, because in the hunting gathering time there will be less number of babies, so some mothers are infertile, so they can use their energetics to rear up these babies. So this is really the allo mothers. Still now these allo mothers are there in the rural area, that the people having menopause, the women has menopause, using their energies for rearing up the babies. So Picos disease appears to be an ancient disorder and also Neolithic culture. So lower prevalence, absence of obesity, high levels of physical activity, seasonal variations in the food supply. So increase in fat. Studies suggested excess fat may be unmasking the previous latent Picos. So it was latent. Now we have excess fat, reduced physical activity, increase in average food intake. That was latent, whether these we are triggering this one. So that kind of triggering we know known as is a epigenetic factors. So let us see just a whole, I mean, it's going on because most of the people know about this epigenetic, that's turn on and turn off of the genes, that whether the gene will going to express or not. This is again a question. So this is like a blueprint, that you have the blueprint of this one, but if you have skill, all these things you have, the genetics is there, then you can express that particular thing and can result in disaster. If it's analogy, so blueprint can result in disaster if other elements are subpar. So in case of the Picos, there are several epigenetic factors. So that's again, for better or worse, fetal androgen exposure is one of them. So fetal exposure of the androgen, so again, maternal Picos. So these are the fetal exposure. You can see that adult Picos phenotypes. So nowadays, the people think about this. So there are some kind of proxies for understanding the prenatal androgen excess. So the student of anthropology, as a student of anthropology and other, I mean, anthropologists are using this one as 2D 4D ratio to understand about the prenatal androgen excess. So where we see that this 2D 4D ratio, I mean the second digit and 4 digit ratio, is always greater in case of the female than the males. So in the cross culturally it has been come up, the ratio has come up. So that is androgen excess in the maternal, if there is maternal Picos, definitely, because polycystic ovarian syndrome having the androgens. So study of genetic and epigenetic patterns so enable researchers to understand the association between the various facets of this syndrome. What method can be adopted treating this hormonal imbalance and the rest of the fertility? So let's start from the dietary therapy. Oral contraceptive pills nowadays doctors are using to the Picos patients. The oral contraceptive pills or laparoscopic ovarian drilling or art or assisted reproductive technology I have already mentioned. That is called subfertility, infertility to the subfertility. So the procedure are again accompanied by a number of secondary diseases. We have to think of some other preventive measures. Definitely, as our genes respond to the environment we supply them, we can take improve health, your gene expression, and reduce Picos sign and symptoms accordingly. So early diagnosis of Picos can be a savior, definitely. So early diagnosis in India, 40% of the women are diagnosed with the Picos. However, only 60% of them could receive treatment. So early diagnosis, appropriate treatment are vital in the prevention of the Picos. So economic burden on the Picos is very high. $1 billion are spent annually in the United States to screen the disease. So definitely, if we have kind of biomarkers that I have already mentioned, that whether we can use low cost one anthropology of microbiome, so salivary microbial diversity, very low cost that we can go for if it is validated. However, so therefore, accurate and early diagnosis of Picos need more genetic studies. So summarization, I would like to go for Picos is an ancient disorder, not a suddenly developed one. Obesity as a means of lifestyle and environmental factor does exacerbate many exacerbate many aspects of the Picos, but not likely the cause of the Picos. Not only obesity, other environmental factors like physical activity, lifestyle factor, dietary pattern, and socioeconomic status, prenatal environment can cannot be considered as a cause of Picos. So the genetics is very much important. They are just unmasking the latent Picos among those who are already genetically predisposed. So already, because I said the genetics, twin studies says 72% of the genetics. Thus, it's very important to study the genes that are involved in the etiology of the syndrome as well as the environmental contribution in their expressions. Now, again, I'm talking about these genes are very, large number of genes is not population specific. So each and all the population should take their own population genetic structure, the single nucleotide polymorphism, not that Indian or Bengali population. I'm belonging to the Bengali population. This is working with the Punjabi population because we have different kind of uh, ethnic, relationships. So definitely, so we need to understand about the genetics. So therefore, there is no known way to cure Picos. But once you are diagnosed with this, it's very important to follow your individual treatment. That is very much important. Individual treatment to help reduce the risk of the future complication. An ounce of prevention, definitely we know that, is worth a pound of cure. So Picos is just now really very much important for the prevention. So I'm just going to finish my sharing. So questions are very much welcome. So I would like to acknowledge all of my students that they have, again, I started with this one, crazy ideas to me, input to me. Why don't we work with this one? So always I say that we would like to work this one. So I am very much happy to have this kind of students who are always giving me impetus. Thank you so much for listening me for a long time.
Thank you, sir. Such a nice, informative session for students, research scholars, and teachers like me, and for all participants. There are a number of questions are already given by participants in the chat box. Ovishika Ghosh Roy, we actually want to know there are any association between reproductive kinetics and PCOS risk, and how with the gene expression studies risk of the PCOS can be ascertained among the breast cancer patients and vice versa.
Shall I give the answer right now? So thank you so much, Obishikta, because Obishikta is a very brilliant student, worked on breast cancer with me. So definitely I thought that Obishikta will definitely would like to understand this one. So I have already mentioned that Picos has a larger chance of having this breast cancer, because when I talked about the genes, so BRCA1, BRCA2, and TP53, that both the three genes has taken into consideration with our work with Obishikta, and we find some kind of SNPs over there, but that all the SNPs are not making the breast cancer. In that case, so I feel that we need to use the bioinformatics in this particular condition, because I say the hundreds of the genes. So we can try to understand with the bioinformatics that actually which genes are very much important, which characters are very genes SNPs are very much important in case of our population. I'm talking about very small, about the Bengali population, because this might change in case of Punjabi population. So all of the students of Punjab, or maybe in Bengali population, maybe in Oriya, so everybody should have the different kind of SNPs. It's not the old SNPs we'll be going to work on. Okay, so I got this question, sir. I would like to know there is association between the reproductive kinetics. Yes, reproductive kinetics is there, because that's why I said subfertility and the infertility, right? This is a reproductive kinetics and the Picos risk. And all of you know that Picos, the main problem is menstrual dysregulation, and finally it comes up as infertility. I'm talking about the subfertility because infertile nowadays it's possible for taking by art, that assisted reproductive technology can make infertile some of the infertile women to making it fertile. Thank you so much, Obishikta, for posing this question, brainstorming.
Sir, there are another question from Obishikta Ghosh, which is, as PCOS is a multigene and multifactorial disorder, is there any chance with mutation in candidate gene, the mRNA structure would change?
I do not know about the candidate gene. I have already mentioned what is the hindering of the candidate gene. I said this is both firstly that I feel that Dr. Obishikta Ghosra has gone through with this LD, that linkage disequilibrium is very much important and hindering the effect of finding out the candidate gene. And once we get the candidate gene, and in my point of view, in my opinion, there must not be any one candidate gene or some handful of candidate gene for the whole population. So definitely expression quality will be going to change, and there are some kind of technology right now that we can find out the expression in the RNA sequences from the DNA. That's why I said about epigenetics and methylations and the acetylations. Thank you very much again, Obishikta,
Thank
for
you.
your scientific acumen of the molecular genetics and posing these questions on the molecular genetics. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. From Hidayat Hussain, there are another question, which is, as PCOS is a syndrome related to ovary, then what the chance to those persons who have ovotestis to suffer from this problem?
It's not the syndrome in the ovary, it's a syndrome of characters when a woman has Picos. So this is a multiple of characters, so that's why known as syndrome. And I have already showed you that there are Rotterdam consortiums have taken 3 out of 2. Now about the ovotestis, really these are very rare condition. You are talking about the sexual DSD, that disorder in the sexual diversifications and other kind of things. These are very really, I'm not very rare. So right now we cannot say about this ovotestis like what was thought about the intersexes. I'm not talking about intersex. I was talking about the DSD, that is a different kind of things. In case of the ovotestis, most of the times these individuals are become infertile because ovary and testis, both of them are there. So infertile. So really, this is not found any research right now. I didn't find any research on the Picos with the ovotestis, and if I get it, I definitely will be able to say you.
Thank you, sir.
Any more?
Such a nice informative session. There are lots of appreciation are given by participants and audience in the chat box. And
Thank you so much.
thank you again with a very excellent presentation. Thank you
Thank
again,
you so
sir.
much, Loknath. Thank you so much, Loknath. Thank you so much for listening me for a quite long time.
Thank you, sir. Without wasting a minute, I would like to request Mr. Hidayat Hussain from Department of Anthropology to introduce our next speakers. Thank you.
Well, now I would like to introduce our second speakers. Actually, there are 3 speakers they are from Serbia. The first speaker of these 3 is Tania Pavlica. She is a full professor at the Faculty of Science, Department of Biology and Ecology. She teaches undergraduate, master's, and doctoral courses related to the field of human biology. Her scientific activity is focused on the study of biometric and population genetic characteristics of human population. The conducted research indicates the biological characteristics of the recent population that inhabit Vojvodina in North Serbia in the first place in the field of somatic growth and development of children and adolescents. Her main direction of research are dedicated to quantitative properties, maturation, and secular trend. Professor Pavlica is an author of an e-book, one monograph, one chapter in the monograph, and several scientific papers in domestic and foreign journals. She participated in 4 national projects and 1 international. She is a member of the editorial board of 3 scientific journals: Journal of the Anthropological Society of Serbia, Annals of Human Biology, Anthropological Research and Studies. She is the secretary of the Anthropological Society of Serbia from 2007 to 2011 and from 2016 until today. The second speaker of this team from Serbia is Miryana Galic. She is a full professor of anatomy at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Novi Sad. She works at Department of Anatomy since 1999, and she is involved in teaching anatomy for health professions, students of the Faculty of Sports and Physical Education, and biomedical engineers. Her research fields are clinical anatomy, physical anthropology, endocrinology, obesitiology and adipobiology, morphometry and stereology, anatomy education, body preservation techniques, plastination, anatomy art, and bioinformatics. Professor Astrodi Galic is an author of 2 anatomy textbooks, 1 coloring atlas, and 2 chapters in monographs. She participated in 2 international and 4 national projects. In the period 2012 to 2015, she was chair of Department of Anatomy, and currently she is on the position of the Vice Dean for Accreditation and Quality Control of the Faculty of Medicine, Novi Sad. The third speaker of the group from Serbia is Professor Dr. Miryana Udichi. She completed integrated studies of medicine in 2009 at the Faculty of Medicine in Novi Sad. From 2010 to 2011, she was engaged at the Department of Pharmacology, Toxicology and Clinical Pharmacology, Faculty of Medicine, University of Novi Sad, as a scholarship holder on 2 projects of the Ministry of Science and Technology Development of the Republic of Serbia. Since 2011, she has been employed at the Department of Anatomy, Faculty of Medicine, University of Novi Sad, first as a teaching assistant and then assistant professor. She held practical classes in anatomy for students of integrated academic studies in medicine, dentistry and pharmacy, master academic studies in nursing, special education and rehabilitation, medical rehabilitation and undergraduate academic studies in medical rehabilitation, nursing and special education and rehabilitation, and undergraduate applied studies in radiological technology and nursing. Then for the students of the Faculty of Sports and Physical Education and the Faculty of Technical Sciences. In addition to her professional work, she is actively involved in scientific research in the field of anatomy, anthropology, and adipobiology. She completed PhD studies in the study program Clinical Medicine at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Novi Sad in 2019, defending her doctoral dissertation entitled Analysis of Relationship Between Nutritional Level and Markers of Inflammation and Oxidative Stress in Breast Adipose Tissue of Premenopausal Women with Breast Cancer. She is an active member of the Serbian Anatomical Society of Serbia, the European Association of Experimental Morphology, the World Association of Anatomists, the Anthropological Society of Serbia, and the Association of Physicians of Vojvodina of the Serbian Medical Society. She speaks English. It's my pleasure to introduce all of you, madam. Now I'd like to request all of you to start your deliberation. The screen is yours now.
Thank you very much. Čekaj sad kako da... Ne. Ovo? Ne, korak. Where is the presentation? Hmm? Something is wrong with the presentation. I don't know what.
No, ma'am. Then your screen is not sharing.
Yes, I can't see my presentation. It's some kind of problem. I don't know what is happening. Excuse me.
Ma'am, do you see a share screen button at the bottom? Share
screen, yes. Yes, I can see.
On that. Please click on that.
And share.
A window has appeared.
Yes, I've already done that, but it's some kind of problem. I don't know what is the problem. I've already done that. But I can't see. Oh, there is. So everything is okay now. Well, I want to greet you all. My colleagues and I are very happy to be with you today. And for that, I would like to thank Professor Arup Bandyopadhyay, who invited us to be lecturers on today's webinar with the topic entitled Understanding Mechanisms of Breast Cancer Development from Anthropometric Measures to Metabolic Regulation and Redox Activity. Koji sad? First of all, I would like to introduce our today's lecturers. My name is Tatjana Pavlica, and I'm full professor at the University of Novi Sad at the Faculty of Science at the Department of Biology and Ecology. Our second lecturer is Biljana Sredić-Galić, full professor at the University of Novi Sad, Faculty of Medicine at the Department of Anatomy. And our youngest lecturer today is Professor Miryana Udichi, assistant professor at the Faculty of Medicine at the Department of Anatomy. Što neće opet? Na kojoj stranici? Kako da se isključim? We welcome you from Serbia. Serbia is a country situated at the crossroads between Central and Southeast Europe, as you can see. And Serbia shares borders with Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, North Macedonia, Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Croatia. The capital of Serbia is Belgrade. Belgrade is the only city with more than 1 million inhabitants, and there are more cities with over 100,000 citizens. If we compare with India, Serbia is a very small country. It covers a total area of 88,361 square kilometers, which places it at 111th place in the world. The second largest city is Novi Sad, and there are 4 more cities with more than 100,000 citizens. Šta je sada? Sorry for inconvenience. Your today's lecturer lives in Vojvodina. Vojvodina is an autonomous province located in the north of Serbia. Vojvodina, as you can see in these pictures, is a plain with very fertile land and represents the main agricultural region of Serbia. The capital of Vojvodina is Novi Sad, and your today's lecturers lives in Novi Sad. Novi Sad is the second largest city in Serbia. It is an old city founded in 1694. The total number of citizens is approximately 300,000 to 400,000 citizens. You may have heard for the music festival Exit. Exit is held every year on the famous Petrovaradin fortress, and Petrovaradin fortress is one of the symbols of Novi Sad. The second symbol is this Catholic church, which is situated in the very center of the city of Novi Sad. Here on this map, you can see University of Novi Sad, the map of University of Novi Sad. Almost all faculties are located here at the central campus, except medical faculty. Medical faculty is situated at some other place near the hospitals. But as I said, all the other faculties are located here. University of Novi Sad is founded in 1960, and it is the only state university in autonomous province of Vojvodina. There are more than 50,000 students studied at the university, and there are 5,000 staff members and 283 study programs. This is the Faculty of Sciences. The Faculty of Sciences is founded in 1969, and it consists of 5 departments, as you can see here. And this picture is Department of Biology, where I am employed at the Laboratory for Human Biology. This is the main building of Faculty of Medicine, and your today's lecturers are situated right here inside this building. The Faculty of Medicine is founded in 1960, and since its foundation, more than 8,000 physicians, dentists, pharmacists, and nurses have studied and graduated at this faculty. There are about more than 500 professors and assistants who are actively involved in the education of future medical professionals. We will discuss today about breast cancer development. And as you know, women's health includes emotional, social, and physical well-being. And it is determined by the biological properties of women, as well as social, political, and economic context in which the women lives. One of the results of our investigations in our country shows that 60.1% of women in the Republic of Serbia died from cardiovascular disease, and on the second place are malignant diseases, participating with 16.3%. So cardiovascular diseases and malignant tumors account for 2/3 of all causes of death. Other medical problems in women in Serbia are related to diseases of nutrition and metabolism, obstructive lung diseases, injuries, poisonings, and mental health disorders. It should be emphasized that high participation of these diseases reflects the widespread presence of behavioral risk factors of women, like smoking, alcohol consumption, poor diet, and low physical activity, as well as environmental risk factors like polluted air, water, and food. It is also important to say and to show some kind of variable risk factors. These are risk factors that follow from behavior of women and whose frequency can be eliminated or reduced by effective health service programs. According to the Institute of Public Health, the malignant process is most often localized on the breast, colon, lungs, and cervix, which are almost the most common cause of death from cancer in our women in Serbia. According to the latest results, and among 40 European countries, Serbia ranks in the group of countries with a medium risk of disease, ranked 12th place, and a high risk of dying from malignant diseases in Europe right after Hungary. Every second adult resident of Serbia is obese, while 7.9% are malnourished. Second-degree obesity and excessive obesity are more common in females, while malnutrition is more common in men. Over 70% of the adult population, and more often women, does not engage in recreation or sports in her spare time, and only 2.5% of women are engaged in recreation sports 4 to 6 times a week. During 90s and during the first decade of 21st century, our team conducted a comprehensive research in almost all areas of Vojvodina, in rural areas of Vojvodina, and over 6,000 adult inhabitants in rural places of Vojvodina were investigated. It is, I will say today, I will talk today only about those anthropometric characteristics that may be important for the breast cancer development. We investigated a lot of anthropometric characteristics, quantitative and qualitative, but here I will speak only about those who may be connected with breast cancer development. These studies showed that most of the women in Serbia were normally nourished, 48%. Overweight is represented in 32%, and there are 17 women who were obese. Pathological obesity, malnutrition, medium and moderate were represented in a quite small percent. Here you can see the results about relationship between nutritional categories in different age groups of women, and as you can see, women in younger ages were almost normally nourished, were in higher percent normally nourished until the age of 50. After that age, the prevalence of overweight and obesity is rising. Also, we find negative association between nutritional categories, between BMI categories in women of different education. That means that women with only elementary or basic school have had the highest percent of overweight and obesity, and with the increase of the level of education, the number of overweight and obesity decreases, and the number of normally weight women increased. So in the group of high education women, almost 87% were normally nourished. Within the same comprehensive research, we also investigated body height of the respondents, and here on this graph you can see the results, and you can see that women and men in Serbia are almost with very high physical growth. They're almost very tall and above average height. And as you can see, the average value of males' height is 176 and females 162. It is also very important to say that for this characteristic, we find positive secular trend, increase in height, which is 1.55 centimeter per decade. We also find a positive association between body height distribution and education. So you can see that women with primary education had the lowest values of body height, and then with the increase of education, these characteristics increase. So the women with high education had the highest values of body height. Što sad opet neće? A koju stranicu da ovu? I'm sorry again for this inconvenience, but I can't. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Along with these anthropometric characteristics, one more factor is very important for the breast cancer development. This is early manner. Many studies have shown that early manner before 11 years can be a risk factor for the development of breast cancer in the later period of life. So we conducted one comprehensive research with the aim to assess the temporal pattern in variability of menarche age from 2001 to 2019, and the relationship with biological factors and educational level of parents. I'm very happy to say that the results of these investigations will be soon published in journal Anthropologische Anzeiger at the very beginning at October. And who is interested, maybe read the article. Cross-sectional anthropometric survey was conducted in 3 intervals. The first is from 2001 to 2004, the second from 2011 and to 2014, and the third period is at 2019. In total, 5,201 adolescent girls were investigated. Menarche was gathered applying status quo method, and age at menarche was calculated by probit analysis. We saw that and find that mean menarche age declined from 12.6 to 12.3 in the period from 2001 and 2000 to 2019. And this shows the increase in developmental tempo during the first 2 decades of 21st century in Vojvodina by 0.3 months. The increase in developmental tempo can be seen also if we compare our studies with the studies performed earlier in 1978 and 1981. The mean menarche age declined from 12.84 to 12.56, and these results showed that over the period of 41 years, the mean menarche age declined by 0.28 years. Our results shows that girls of the same calendar age are who matured earlier are taller, heavier, and have higher values of body mass index than girls who matured in a later period of life. So these results suggested that obesity in childhood can be a risk factor for early manner. In this table, you can see that education of parents, education of father, and education of mother were negatively associated with time of menarche, but only the values for mothers were statistically significant. That means that girls who lives in families with parents of higher educational level matured earlier than those girls who lives in parents with basic or elementary schools. At summary, from these results, we can say that in our region, there is a tendency towards increasing prevalence of overweight and obesity in women. We also find a positive secular trend of body height and shifting age at menarche toward earlier ages. This can be very important results because those characteristics may possibly be connected with development of breast cancer in women. And about this topic, my another colleague, Biljana Srdić-Galić, will tell you something more about that. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Biljana Srdić-Galić, and I will talk more about breast cancer, presenting our own results regarding to the relationship between breast cancer and some anthropometric factors and some other characteristics like obesity and increased body height. We know that the breast cancer is the most frequent cancer among women, impacting around 2 million women each year, with increasing mortality rate. On this map, we can see the incidence from breast cancer in European countries, and the lowest incidence is registered on the south of Europe in Greece, while the highest incidence is in the Western countries. This is Belgium. The lowest mortality rate is registered in Spain, while the highest mortality rate is in Ireland. Serbia ranks in the group of countries with medium risk. The average incidence rate is around 60, and the mortality rate is around 20 per 100,000. What are the risk factors for development of breast cancer? First of all, there is the advancing age. Women older than 50 are at higher risk for development of the breast cancer. The next one is the family history and also personal history of breast cancer. Then proliferative breast diseases like atypical hyperplasia and also lobular carcinoma in situ, having dense breasts, overweight and obesity, especially after menopause. We will talk about them later, and we will see that obesity can be associated with lower risk of breast cancer in premenopausal period. Then reproductive history and hormones. It is known that reproductive hormones can influence cell proliferation and cancer growth, and exposure to higher levels of estrogen over a long period of time increases the risk. And that is the reason why early menarche and late menopause are very important. And we saw that there is a tendency of shifting of age at menarche towards earlier ages. Timing of pregnancy is also very important, especially pregnancies after 30, then no breastfeeding and nulliparity. taking hormone replacement therapy after menopause, and also taking oral contraceptives. What is the influence of the race and ethnicity? It is found that white women are at higher risk of development of breast cancer comparing to Black women, Hispanic, Asian, and Native American women. But Black women are at higher risk of developing more aggressive forms of breast cancer. The next factor is the radiation exposure at a young age. Some anthropometric factors, as we could see, obesity or adiposity, body weight, and also body height, we will see that higher stature is associated with higher risk of breast cancer. Diet, higher consumption of animal fat, alcohol, processed and red meat, and lower consumption of fruits and vegetables, as well as lower physical activity, can also raise a risk of development of breast cancer. It is also known that there are differences between premenopausal and postmenopausal breast cancer. Premenopausal breast cancer is usually linked to genetic predisposition, and they are usually more severe and harder to treat. They are less often connected with obesity, while postmenopausal breast cancer is more common. It is linked to a longer reproductive period with having no or only few children or older age of first birth, and usually it is strongly linked to obesity. Breast cancer becomes an issue under focus of our investigation 10 years ago. We started with investigation of relationship between obesity and breast cancer, but during the time we came to some more interesting findings. In cooperation with our colleagues from the Oncology Institute of Vojvodina, we started to collect breast adipose tissue samples, also anamnestic data, and we included a large battery of anthropometric measures. All our patients were in the early stage of breast cancer, and our control group included healthy women recruited among medical staff and students of the Faculty of Medicine. In this part of presentation, we will present our own results, and we will talk more about role of obesity in development of breast cancer, association with increased body height, and also we will talk about a specific somatotype. We had only one question: is it possible to define specific body constitution associated with breast cancer? As we previously mentioned, obesity is connected with postmenopausal breast cancer, while in premenopausal period it has no effect or it can have protective effect. Theories about connection between breast cancer and obesity are mainly based on the role of estrogen, insulin, and adipocytokines that are secreted by adipose tissue. Normally, ovaries secrete estrogen in the period before menopause, but after menopause they stop producing estrogen, and adipose tissue becomes the main source of estrogen in that period. And having more adipose tissue means being obese, having higher levels of estrogen, and higher risk of breast cancer development. Protective role of obesity in premenopausal period are usually explained by obesity-associated anovulation and lower levels of estrogen. Another one important fact is that after menopause, we have redistribution of fat. The main site of fat deposition becomes the abdominal region, and we have a central fat deposition and development of central obesity comparing to more peripheral distribution in premenopausal period. And it is known that central obesity is connected with hyperinsulinemia and metabolic disturbances that can raise the risk of development of cancer. Many studies showed a positive association between breast cancer and obesity. This is a large meta-analysis which included 89 studies published between 1980 and 2012. And according to this analysis, obesity is associated with a 20% reduction in receptor-positive premenopausal breast cancer and with 20 to 40% increased risk of receptor-positive postmenopausal breast cancer. Another one large study defined a specific cutoff value of body mass index, which is used for diagnosis of obesity. This value corresponds with higher risk of breast cancer, and at the same time, it corresponds with obesity class 1. And here are our results. Our premenopausal and postmenopausal women with breast cancer had significantly lower values of body mass index. This result was expected in premenopausal group, but this one is a little bit confusing because we expected higher values of BMI in postmenopausal women. Moreover, we didn't find significant difference in body weight and in body fat percent, and also the values of body adiposity index were significantly lower among breast cancer patients. So what produced those lower values of BMI? It can be only increased body height. And indeed, our postmenopausal women with breast cancer were significantly taller comparing to healthy women. And that brings us to the connection between higher stature and breast cancer. Many studies proved that risk of development of different types of cancer is associated with increased height. In this million women study, relative risk of development of different types of cancers like colorectal, thyroid, endometrial, and also breast cancer increases with increasing body height. And interestingly, body height is connected with the risk of both cardiovascular diseases and cancer, but in opposite directions. Shorter people are at greater risk of development of cardiovascular diseases, while taller people are at greater risk of development of cancers. How an increase in height confers a higher risk of cancer? It is unclear, but two effects are proposed. In a direct effect, taller people have more stem cells and they have higher probability to acquire mutations over time. And the indirect effect, the main factor is the insulin-like growth factor 1 as one of major determinants of height, which is associated with risk of number of cancers. Apart from the standing height, we also measured a sitting height and also calculated Cormick index as the ratio between sitting and standing height. And we found that both pre- and postmenopausal women with breast cancer have significantly lower sitting body height and Cormick index. So they had shorter upper part of the body and longer legs. And it is known that leg length is an indicator of prepubertal growth, and it is also associated with levels of growth hormone before puberty, and also it can be a marker of IGF-1 levels and risk of development of cancer. Considering parameters of transverse dimensionality, we found that premenopausal women with breast cancer had narrower hips, and both pre- and postmenopausal women with breast cancer had enlarged, significantly higher biepicondylar diameter of humerus. Similar results we found in this Polish study that hypothesized that women with breast cancer present an android type of silhouette, which is very interesting. They also found that women with breast cancer have narrower hips and shorter trunks. They also found broader arms and a central obesity. And the main link between central obesity and breast cancer is hyperinsulinemia and also higher values of IGF-1 that increases cell proliferation and also produces cancer growth. However, we didn't find central obesity among our patients, but we found something else. Our breast cancer patients had significantly higher values of upper arm circumference, which was not result of higher fat deposition because the skin fold thickness above biceps was significantly lower. So enlarged upper arm circumference is obviously result of more developed muscles. So that can be another one android feature. Somatotyping also showed that breast cancer patients have less adiposity, more muscles, and they are more elongated. So they had significantly lower values of endomorphy, significantly higher ectomorphy, and in group of postmenopausal women, we found significantly higher values of mesomorphy, which is connected with muscle mass. We also found some differences in somatotype categories. Mesomorph endomorph somatotype was the most frequent somatotype among breast cancer patients. It means that mesomorphy and endomorphy are equal and ectomorphy is lower, while a mesomorphic endomorph somatotype was the most frequent somatotype among healthy women. It means that endomorphy is dominant, while mesomorphy is higher than ectomorphy. And in a summary, we can say that according to our results, we can say that there is a positive correlation between breast cancer and obesity, maybe only in the group of premenopausal women. But we proved connection between higher body stature and breast cancer, especially in postmenopausal women. We found also differences in the somatotype and somatotype categories, and we also found some anthropometric features that are talking about tendency of having more android constitution in a group of women with breast cancer, which opens many questions. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Miryana Udichi, and now I would like to talk about the association between the breast cancer, obesity, inflammation, and oxidative stress. Like you heard already from Professor Saradić-Gajlić, the obesity is associated with the breast cancer risk, especially when we talk about the women in postmenopausal period. Now, on this slide, I would like to show you what are the changes that happen in the adipose tissue of obese people. Well, first of all, in the cases of positive energetic balance, there is the need to storage increase the concentration of free fatty acids. And because of that, we see the enlargement of the adipocytes and the enlargement of the adipose tissue. Also, inflammatory and dysfunctional changes happen in the adipose tissue of obese people. First of all, the adipocytes, because of the need to storage more free fatty acids, they become enlarged and they react by hyperplasia and also hypertrophia. So we see in the adipose tissue of obese people, we see adipocytes that are hypertrophic. Because of this hypertrophia, the adipocytes become removed from the blood vessels, and because of that, there is the hypoxia. So we see the hypertrophic adipocytes and hypoxia. Also, there is the macrophage infiltration, and the macrophages come to the adipose tissue and they're being attracted by macrophage hemoattractant protein 1. Usually these macrophages, they surround apoptotic adipocytes and they form the structures that are called crown-like structures, and they're called like that because they remind us of a crown, and this would be the apoptotic adipocytes surrounded by macrophages. Also, in this adipose tissue, we see the change in the production of cytokines, and we see the increasement in the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha, interleukin-1, and interleukin-6, and also leptin. But in the adipocytes of obese people, the production of adiponectin, anti-inflammatory adiponectin, is decreased. Also, one more problem that happens in the obese people in the adipose tissue is the development of fibrosis. And the fibrosis doesn't let adipocytes to expand anymore, and because of that, more free fatty acids go to other places. They form ectopic depots, and they're connected with cardiometabolic disturbances that we see in obesity. One more thing that happens in the adipose tissue of obese people is the development of oxidative stress. And the oxidative stress develops as the result of imbalance between the production of reactive oxygen species and antioxidants or oxidative stress enzymes. Reactive oxygen species are produced in cell metabolism, and they can damage the DNA, they can make the damage to the lipids, to the proteins of the cell membranes. Well, here on this slide, you can see some of the reactive oxygen species, the superoxidanion, hydrogen peroxide, and hydroxy radical. And also here, you can see the enzymes that are involved in their removal, and some of the activities of these enzymes be examined in the adipose and glandular tissue of people or women with breast cancer, and compared it to the activity of these enzymes in women with benign breast changes. Previously, you have heard for obesity as a risk factor of breast cancer. We said that it is a main risk factor of breast cancer in women in postmenopausal period. And what is it that happens in the adipose tissue that makes these obese women prone to the breast cancer development? First of all, the adipose tissue of obese people is the place of peripheral conversion of androgen into the estrogen. It happens under the influence of one enzyme that is called aromatase enzyme. And also in the adipose tissue of obese people, we've already seen that it becomes inflamed, and there is increased production of pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6. These pro-inflammatory cytokines, they actually increase the activity of aromatase, and because of that, the production of estrogen is increased. Also, obesity is involved to metabolic disturbances, to insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia. Hyperinsulinemia is associated with the decreased level of sex hormone binding globulin. Why is sex hormone binding globulin important? Because in blood we have three forms of estrogen. We have the free estradiol, then we have that one is the only one that is biologically active. Also, the another form is when it is bounded to sex hormone binding globulin, and the third is bounded to albumin. And in obesity, we have the hyperinsulinemia, like insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia. And because of that, we have the decreasement of sex hormone binding globulin. And because of that, we see the increased level of estradiol, and that one is biologically active. Here on this slide, I wanted to show you the structure of a mammary gland. We can see that it is made of glandular tissue, connective tissue, and very interesting for us was the adipose tissue. Why is it so interesting? Well, adipose tissue makes 7 to 56% of the mammary gland, and it provides fatty acids. It has the influence on the ductal morphogenesis. It controls metabolism. It is responsible for the secretion of pro and anti-inflammatory cytokines. It also controls the local fibrosis and provides multipotent stem cells, and it has the influence of angiogenesis. And because of that, we think that it might have an important role in carcinogenesis. If we remember from the previous slides, we talked about the changes that happen in the adipose tissue of obese people. So dysfunctional changes that happen and inflammatory changes that happen in adipose tissue of obese people. You remember the hypertrophy of the adipocytes, hypoxia, inflammation, insulin resistance and metabolic disturbances, insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia, and all of these make adipose tissue in obese people a very good microenvironment for breast cancer development that could make breast cancer progress more rapidly. Also, in obese people, we know that the production of free radicals is increased, and we know that free radicals, they cause DNA mutations, they can cause epigenetic alterations. They're actually involved in every step of carcinogenesis, and because of that, they can impact cell growth, cell proliferation, angiogenesis, invasion, and metastasis. Because all of this, we wanted to examine the oxidative stress, actually the activity of oxidative stress enzymes in the women with breast cancer, in the adipose and tumorous glandular tissue in women with breast cancer, and to compare it with the women with benign breast changes. Also, we wanted to see what is it with the inflammation. So we wanted to examine the macrophage infiltration and the expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines TNF-alpha and interleukin-6 in the glandular and adipose tissue of women with breast cancer and women with benign breast changes. And we wanted also to see or to compare these oxidative stress and inflammation in women with different nutrition level. All of our women were in premenopausal period, since we found many studies that confirmed the relationship of obesity with breast cancer development in women in postmenopausal period. So first, on this slide, we can see the activity of redox regulation parameters in breast adipose tissue. So first two slides are referred to the breast adipose tissue. Here we can see that the catalase activity and glutathione peroxidase activity was statistically higher in normal weight women with breast cancer when compared to the normal weight women with benign breast changes. Also, for the glutathione peroxidase activity, we also noticed statistically higher activity of this enzyme in obese women with breast cancer when compared to the obese women with benign breast changes. Well, here on this slide, we can see that glutathione reductase activity, tioredoxin reductase activity, and the level of glutathione, we did not notice any difference of the activity of these enzymes in the breast adipose tissue, no matter to the type of the breast change, so no matter to the malignant or benign breast change, and also no matter to the nutrition level, normal weight women compared to obese women. These next two slides, are related to the activity of redox regulation parameters in breast glandular tissue. So again, we can see that we notice the statistically higher activity of glutathione peroxidase in women with breast cancer, normal weight women with breast cancer compared to normal weight women with benign breast changes. And also for copper zinc superoxidismutase activity, this was noticed for obese women. So obese women with breast cancer had higher activity of copper zinc superoxidismutase in the breast glandular tissue when compared to the obese women with benign breast changes. What about the glutathione reductase activity, tioredoxin reductase activity, and glutathione level in breast glandular tissue again? Well, here we can see that the glutathione reductase activity and the level of glutathione was statistically higher in women, normal weight women with breast cancer when compared to the normal weight women with benign breast changes. Also, tioredoxin reductase activity was higher, statistically higher, in obese women, malignant women, when compared to obese women with benign breast changes. And here we can also notice one more difference, and that is the glutathione reductase activity in normal weight women with breast cancer was higher than the activity of this enzyme in obese women with breast cancer. So we had a difference referred to the different nutrition level, and that was in the breast glandular tissue. Later on, we wanted to see what happens with the inflammation actually here with macrophage infiltration. And we can see that M1 macrophages were not noticed, while M2 macrophages were noticed in women with benign breast changes. Well, this was something that we did not really expect, and these results were quite surprising for us. Also, we did not notice any Crohn-like structures that we would expect in the adipose tissue of obese people. Well, then we wanted to see what about the glandular tissue, and we saw that also M1 macrophages were not noticed, and M2 macrophages were present in actually CD163 marker, that is for M2 macrophages. It was noticed in every study group and with highest intensity in the women with benign breast changes. When we didn't find expected differences in macrophage infiltration, we wanted to see what is it with the expression of inflammatory markers in the breast adipose tissue and in the breast glandular tissue. And also, we got something that we did not expect, we noticed that the expression of these pro-inflammatory cytokines, interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha, did not show any difference, no matter to the type of the breast change, so malignant or benign, and no matter to the nutrition level when we compare normal weight to obese women. And that was the same in the breast glandular tissue. Also, the expression of interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha showed no difference in women with malignant breast changes compared to the women with benign breast changes, and no matter to the nutrition level, so normal weight and obese. At the end, we can say that the redox regulation had an impact on the breast cancer development, and that there is obviously a pro-oxidative state that is found in the tissue that surrounds the tumor's tissue. Also, that adipose tissue, the changes in the adipose tissue follow the changes in the tumor's tissue. About the obesity and inflammation, well, according to our results, we did not prove the relationship between the obesity and inflammation, since we haven't noticed any differences in macrophage infiltration and expression of TNF-alpha and interleukin-6 in the breast adipose tissue when we compared normal weights to obese women. And also the role in inflammation in breast cancer development, well, it is under the question, since also our results were quite surprising, and then that we did not find any differences in the macrophage infiltration and expression of TNF-alpha and interleukin-6 when compared benign to women with breast cancer. So we can say that according to our results, redox regulation has more impact on the breast cancer development compared to the inflammation. Thank you for your attention. Start camera.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this informative and illuminating presentation on breast cancer. There are some questions in our chat box from our participants. I would like to forward you. There is a couple of questions from our participants. The questions for Tania madam. One of our participants, that is Shomik Pal, want to know, is there any relationship between women education and height? Is it possible to answer, ma'am?
Yes, yes. We found that significant interaction between body height and education. Women with a higher level of education has had the highest height, and women with basic education had the lowest values of height. Well, the better education, perhaps better educated women were raised in better in families with better socioeconomic circumstances, and better socioeconomic circumstances may be better for growth and development of these women. That is one possible reason. And the second possible reason is that those women were perhaps younger than those women who had basic school, and that is possibly the second reason for this result. But the same results were observed in some other investigations in some other places of the world, and that's some connection can be here also. Better educated women are better with the higher values of body height. Do you have some other question? Well, behind breast cancer, and why most of women are not aware of this disease? Is there social reason behind breast cancer? Yes, I suppose that there are socioeconomic reasons behind breast cancer.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes. Because most of women with only...
Sorry for the inconvenience. There is another question from Lokman Ghosh. What are the possible causes of relation between early menarche and breast cancer? I guess it is already been discussed by Miryana ma'am. So I would like to proceed our next question for Miryana ma'am. One of our participants from Deep Karmakar want to know, is there any socio-economic reasons behind the breast cancer? Why most of the women are not well aware of this disease?
Maybe there are nutritional influences on the growth. You saw on the map of Europe in the Western countries with better socioeconomic status.
Are you there, ma'am?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
The connection is a poor problem.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear and see me?
There is a network error actually. Okay. There is a question from Deep Karmakar and a question for Miryana ma'am. He wants to know, is there any socio-economic reason behind the breast cancer, and why most of the women are not well aware of these disease?
Yes, there are some socioeconomic reasons, I suppose. As I said, you can saw on the map of the Europe differences in the incidence of breast cancer, and the highest incidence is in countries with higher and better socioeconomic status. At the same time, for example, in Holland, there are the tallest people, and we could see that there are nutritional influences that determine the body height. So that can be the connection between socioeconomic status and the breast cancer risk. How contraceptives? Because they rise the level of estrogen, and using the hormone replacement therapy after menopause also rises the estrogen level. And hyperestrogeninemia is the risk factor for development of breast cancer. Oh, it's a genetic question. I don't know much about that. Yes, it is found, but I'm not aware about those mechanisms.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice presentation, and really lots of appreciation already shown in the chat box. Such a enthusiastic and such a brilliant presentation for us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, vote of thanks. Thank you, Shomita, for giving me such platform and be a part of organizing member of today's international webinar on health issues and social status of women. First of all, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Dr. Shuntu Kumar Bose, Principal of Shampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, and Dr. Dev Kumar Mukherjee, Principal of Ramshodaya College, whose continuous support and encouragement make such program fruitful. My extreme gratitude for program coordinator, Mr. Rajoshi Mukherjee, IQAC coordinator, Shampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, and Mr. Subroto Roy Chaudhuri, IQAC coordinator, Ramshodaya College, Amta. My extreme gratitude also for Dr. Nirmal Majhi, President of Ramshodaya College, Mr. Kalibodo Mondol, President of Shampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, and Mr. Nodebashi Jana, who are the mentors of this graceful webinar. I would like to pay thanks to Soumita Chatterjee, convener and head of the Department of Anthropology, Shampur Siddheshwari Mahavidyalaya, Sheikh Hidayat Hussain, convener, Department of Anthropology, Ramshodaya College, and Dr. Shubhendu Maiti, HOD, Department of Anthropology, Ramshodaya College, who are the real architect of this program. I am thankful to our chief guest, Dr. Ditindu Chatterjee, Deputy Registrar, University of Calcutta, for being a part of this webinar. My extreme gratitude for him. I would also convey my appreciation to the Honorable Speaker, Dr. Arupratan Bandyopadhyay, Professor, Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta, and Serbia team, Dr. Tania Pavlica, full Professor of the Faculty of Science, University of Novi Sad, Miryana, Miryana Udichi, teaching assistant at the Department of Anatomy, Faculty of Medicine, University of Novi Sad, whose deep discussion on polycystic ovarian cyst and breast cancer, the women health issues, will help the students, research scholar, as well as the teacher like us, hopefully. Thank you all the participants, because the webinar is incomplete without your presence. And at the last, not the least, I am thankful to Mr. Nemiz Manna, Annapurnadi, Mr. Arup Dhara, Mr. Divyajyoti Ganguly, Mr. Shantanu Kundu, and Ms. Bhagyashree Bose, whose restless and enormous labor and the technical support involved in this webinar. Thank you all.